So the river's a lot safer spot now, and maybe cottagers, boaters, they see a deadhead, they'll mark it with, either pull it out of the road or tie a rope on it and put a bottle and float, and of course everybody sees it. If I have time, do I have a few minutes left?
Yeah.
Okay, so as the river things are changing, whatever, there's a company in Bell's Corners, Barry's Sawmill. He got a contract to remove logs, not deadheads, but the logs that had sunk to the bottom of the river, and they would go out and pull these in and saw them up, and of course I guess he had to get paid whoever the companies that owned them from back. Then he started looking, as he was progressing, he started looking for a place, and he come up the river, and he found a spot called Paddy's Bay. Beautiful little bay, sheltered, and so who owns that? He had to find out. So he checked, and Thiessen and Alma Mackay owned that. It was the front part of their property, and of course they're my uncle and aunt. Uncle Thiessen had died in 1952, is that right, Grace? 1952, yeah. And this was 1953, and so he asked if he could build a sawmill down there, and yes, he could build a sawmill down there. And my aunt, she said, she drew up a little contract, and Les had given it to me, I have that, and in the contract, it said you may use the road down through the farm and set up your mill, but you have to keep the gates closed. Make sure the cattle, they're not getting out. So that was part of it. Also in that, he was to deliver every year 20 cords of slab wood. And that was to be delivered to the yard. So that was the sawmill got going, and a lot of the local lads worked there. I can think of Lloyd Little, Gary Lewis. They were teenage, I guess, and just anyway. Clayton Hodgins was another. Darrell Davies was another one that worked there. Eddie Morrison worked there. Bill Hamill. Think of a few. My father worked there, and I think Jim Stevens worked there too. Yeah. He drove the truck delivering from there to Bell's Corners. My father never liked to drive the truck, so that wasn't his thing, but father worked around sawmills, and he was very familiar, like most of the farm lads were. And he, because like I said, I went with father on lots of occasions, because he couldn't be alone. Anyway, I remember he worked, they did different things and throughout the sawing of down there, and getting the logs out of the bottom of the river is how they did it. And I went out with them one time. They had a big tugboat. There'd be about 3 men, maybe 4. They drew 2 rafts behind the tugboat, and on the side of these rafts, the chains hang down, and on the end of them was a pointy thing that they'd drive into the logs. But they would go to a spot, big long pike poles, and feel around, and there's millions and millions of feet of pine in the bottom of the river that's sunk over the years, completely preserved because there's no oxygen getting at it. But anyway, they'd go with these pike poles, and some places would be so thick they couldn't get the logs started to get up, and they'd try, if they could get one of the top logs, they would get it up, and then they could be okay. They keep pulling them up, and they tie them, spigot them along on each side of the raft, and then they would tow them into the mill. And at the mill there was they had a big like a gang plank, and it'd be mostly big wide timber and flat float, and they'd walk out on those, and they'd pull the logs up, kind of face them back out in the water towards the sawmill, and the sawmill would be, there'd be one man would he'd pull the cable down. There's a winch up up at the sawmill. He'd pull, his job would be down, hook onto the logs, and then he'd give the signal and he'd draw them up in there, and there was a canter, and he would look after getting them onto the carriage. And of course the sawyer, his name is Mr. Chapman, then he took it from there. And there's the tailor, the log tailor. Usually there'd be two guys doing that because of the heaviness of the planks and that they would and they'd load them in the back of the truck, and they draw them up through the bush, and right just before you get to the fields there's a big clearing, and somehow or other got the name the buckwheat field, I guess. Maybe years ago it was light land, and they must have grown buckwheat there. But anyway, they would say that's where they take these the lumber and the slab wood as well. Of course, the lumber would be piled with about 2 inch of air gap in the piles, and that was so that it would dry. It had to dry, and of course then they would draw it down to Bell's Corners. Whenever as it was drying, they would always kind of be working their way like that. So that was that part of it. And of course, the slab wood was piled there as well, and later it'd be loaded, it'd be sold as well, of course. And that basically it on the sawmill. Of course, Aunt Alma, she I guess made meals for the Mr. Berry, the guy that owned the company, and the sawyer. Is that right there?
Yeah.
Grace?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the two of them. So that was part of it, and that's basically an awful lot of houses in Bell's Corners. That's the lumber that came out of the river at Sand Bay and the area. This
You've got some pictures of the logging.
this this is some of the at the Boom Island logging gang.
Next.
This picture here, now it looks to me like as if it's the chutes at the Snow Boom, at the Snows. Now if that man's going down on a log, he missed, he's either standing on a rock doing it or he's riding the log right down, I'm not sure.
All I could think of when I seen that picture was the log driver's song.
Yeah. So that's basically how we get to there. And if I have time, Phoenicia, I have maybe one more story.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay,
You
so
got good stories.
Stories, I guess, there's always a kind of a mystery to it. And this one is about the lost gold mine.
Oh yeah, lost
And
too.
I know probably there's lots of people here who've heard this story, and I'm going to tell it the best I can tell it. But apparently, a young fellow was supposed a prospector. He came from England, and he wanted to search out his fortune. He somewhere in the front part of Clarendon, I believe from Sand Bay towards Portash is what I'm told anyway. He started searching and when it made his way through the bush and searched around most of the season, he discovered gold. So, wow, he's pretty excited about this. Getting late in the season though, and he has to go back. And what would he do? So he thought, I'll mark it and I'll come back later. So how he marked it was with barrel hoops, and I'm not sure whether that was hoops he took off provision barrels that he had or what it was. But anyway, he put barrel hoops on trees around so he could return. But he made himself a map, of course, as well. He didn't. He left, but he didn't return. Years had went by, and he didn't return. Then his brother came from England, and he started the search, and he spent the whole season searching the front. Never did find this mine, that supposed mine. Never found the barrel hoops. Never found the mine. Nothing. So this barrel hoop mine story has traveled down through the years. And my father had a friend that he was quite sure he thought he knew where it was, and he looked and looked all his time, and even bought 100 acres of property where he's pretty sure he had it pinned down, where he knew that's where it was. He bought this 100 acres, and you know, by God, he could never find it. That property now that I was talking about is owned by the National Nature Conservatory of Canada. So that's a mystery mine story. One more mine story, and that was mica was discovered.
I thought you were gonna, in your retirement.
Well, just
Oh, you're not there?
you're getting me ahead of myself here. So anyway, the mica was discovered on the Lynn property, and that's on the south side of Birch Creek, the mouth of Birch Creek. That tract of land was all together, and it was an open pit mine. Mica back in the day was used for the little windows in the stoves and that. You could see through it and whatever. So that's what the use of that was. It was also used in the switches, electric switches, because it didn't conduct electricity and it was a good insulator. So it was used in that as well. So that was that mine is right across from Stu and Elvis Stark and Keith Phillips' place there on the other side of Birch Creek. So that's basically it on the area and the settling of the area. And I'd like to thank you very much for being.
Where was the stone mason's kiln? Where was that built?
That was built on Lot 8, Range 1. Pendergrass,
Wickens.
which is now Wickens's.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
And nothing remains of it, I'm assuming?
Oh yes, I believe it would still be visible. Yeah. Yes, Chris.
Tell them a story about the rafters on the Austin Church.
The rafters were donated for the Austin Church by the Lynn family, and talking about religion or whatever, they weren't of the same religion of the Methodist, but everybody worked it out. The rural areas, every community worked it out. It didn't matter what your religion was. That's the way, you worked it out. So
You were neighbors, yeah.
they were neighbors.
Mr. Park, where was the house on Boom Island?
Actually, the house on Boom Island was not right at. If I can
Back there.
go back to there.
Let's keep going back.
What happened to it?
Just age.
It just
Just
disintegrated.
age. So it would be, see, not the very point, but back part way on there.
Yeah.
Okay, and then there was actually a communication line, a telephone line that crossed there to the snow boom, and there was offices like a house, and they could communicate from, I guess, talking about how the logs were being sent down through there, and anyway they communicated there. But that's where the house was, and then back of that, of course, was the cook building, and back of that, then there's the sleeping quarters for the men. So
That stone house that you referred to earlier on,
yes,
there's a little cemetery across
Yes.
from that. I think it's called Mary. What?
that's the old Tarndon Cemetery, and that cemetery was Methodist, and old the English church as well. That was one of the first cemeteries here. Now in that cemetery is buried some people that had shipwrecked, and of course the locals buried them there. They didn't,
Shipwrecked on the Ottawa?
Shipwrecked in Ottawa, yeah, coming up.
Just right at that.
And actually, one of the reasons probably for that is that in Schatz, the Schatz Lake and that area, the very shallow. People, they didn't know that. Some of the boats coming in, and of course, Schatz is how it got its name. Schatz is when the canoes or the boats would be going, Lou would look at it, it looked like it was, you couldn't tell it was shallow, and they'd scratch the bottom of their boats, and they said it sounded like a cat scratching, and that's how it got its name, Shats. So.
And the bay that you call Patty's, we now call it George's
That's,
Bay.
yeah, it's George's Bay now. So, anyway, if anybody has any questions or whatever, and I can answer them, yes.
Where was number 2 school built?
Number 2 school was built right east of the present Austin Church, and it was moved from there to Charlotte, yeah.
And where is the Snows?
The Snows?
Yeah,
You know where the farm
Well,
is?
you know where the Snow Road is?
yes.
Okay, you go right down there, and that's what they call the
At the
Snows.
very end.
And that was
Okay.
called the Snow Boom, that's the Snows. Now, I have a little story.
Another one.
Your father, Emery Elliott, and my father were good friends, of
I'm
course.
first cousin.
First cousins, and I'd heard about caves, and there's caves down there somewhere. And anyway, this is in my time now. Somebody stopped at the cottage, back of the cottage, and they said one of the window down, there was about 4 people in the car, and anyway, he said, they tell me that you know where the caves are. And I said, I'm really not sure what you're talking about. Les Hines at the time, he was living, they had a cottage, and I looked down and I thought,
He set me up.
He set me up here. But anyway, so I said, well, I don't know. They said, well, maybe Upweed. Somebody said maybe at Foundation, but you're the one that know. But I said, no, unfortunately, I don't know. Anyway, left it at that. And one day, I'd mentioned to my father, and he said, yes. He said, yeah, I'd heard about that. And one day, Emery was visiting my father, and I happened to drop in, and I said something about these people. Oh yes, he said, there's caves there. We lived. He said we call it the Foundation, but they lived there, and Hugh Elliott had built that house, and Harold, of course, and then there, and they were raised around there, and. He said, yeah, he said, I used to say, don't be in those caves. You can't be in those caves. So, no, he said, there's caves. So, anyway, I thought, there is caves. So, anyway, one time I said to my father, I said, where would Emery be talking about those caves? And he said, well, has to be down near the house. I said, I'd like to. So, him and I, when we got a chance and he had time, and we went down and we pranced all around and looked and everywhere. We never could find caves, but anyway, there is caves down there somewhere. It's a mystery where they are. It's the very same as the gold mine.
What about the story of putting Terry in the cave?
Okay.
We have a reservation for 12.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna, thank you very much.
On behalf of the archives, we'd like to thank you. We have a card. No money in it, but there's a card. We'd like to thank everybody.
And if you didn't sign it, you didn't get to
And I'm sorry I wasn't born a little earlier, because I would have liked to have gone to all your one-room schools. That's why I came to the Pontiac, because I wanted to go to a one-room school, and they were all closed by the time I got here.
I wouldn't have been up for it. I would have taken an hour. Thank you. Oh my God, they had a picture of her. In the picture of the kids at Sunday school. I went to her farm.